So for more reaction, I want to bring in Joseph Marrone. He's a commentator on Court TV and owns the Marrone law firm in Philadelphia, and that is where we reach him. So, Joseph, what do you make of the verdict? Guilty of sexual assault, but not guilty of the more severe charge, predatory sexual assault.
Well, I think if you understand the case as a whole, I think it's still a victory for the state and for all the women that made these complaints in the Me Too movement. Even though they didn't find him guilty of the predatory counts, which was really to show an ongoing behavior, I think the jury struggled with some of the testimony. But at the end of the day, it came back with a guilty verdict on two of the counts. One of the counts is relatively serious, and he's in prison. That's where they wanted him, and he's going to serve some substantial time.
So that's what we understand, right, in terms of where he is right now. What do we know about that?
He's currently in the local county jail being held. That's where most prisoners are being held. In this case, his bail was revoked upon the guilty verdict. He's taken into custody. There was a sentencing date set in a few weeks. I believe it was March 11th. And that's where he'll sit for time being until his attorneys and the state work out the logistics. Because remember, he has an open case in Los Angeles.
And tell me about that, because Weinstein is also facing those separate charges in LA. Would this verdict be part of that trial?
Well, that's an interesting legal argument, because one is the conviction is not actually logged until he's actually sentenced. So under normal cases, a lot of times when attorneys have clients with cases in other jurisdictions, they will continue the sentencing and leave it open because they don't want that conviction to harm whatever opportunity has in the neighboring state where there's a case, and in this instance, it's Los Angeles. I don't know what they're going to do. There's a number of choices that his legal team can make at this point in time. From what I understand, the Los Angeles case is even more significant as far as the evidence. The women's stories are very, very not only believable, but there's a lot of corroborating evidence. So the question becomes is there a way to work out a global deal knowing that he's going to serve time in the New York case?
Were you surprised by the verdict, given how challenging in the past reaching a conviction has been?
That's a good question, and there's a couple ways to answer that. One is, in this particular case, and anytime you get into these sexual assault cases against a celebrity, as we see in Philadelphia with Cosby, you know, they not only the victims have their claims, right, their stories. They allow additional witnesses to come in they call them sometimes 404B, sometimes mono witnesses. So in the Weinstein case, there were 6 women telling a story, and what happens with that is, you know, you just have a similar story over and over. It's really tough to overcome that. However, in this particular instance, a lot of the stories, these women did admit that they had consensual relations with Weinstein. And you got to also remember, why were they there? I mean, these were actresses, these were inspiring actresses, and they knew who he was. He was a man of power in film and TV. So, you know, it was more than just being put into a situation and being forced upon. It was also that the flip side, these women were taking advantage of a situation themselves. And his defense lawyers, this lady from Chicago, Donna Rotuno, she did an excellent job on cross-examination to really show the inconsistencies and the ongoing relationships in a consensual way. So it got to a point where maybe the jurors just weren't going to buy it. And I thought that was going to happen until today.
So what will you be watching for in sentencing?
Sentencing is going to be very difficult, because I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the main charge that he was convicted on carries a minimum of 5 years up to 25. So regardless, he's getting 5 years. Now the question is, what is his aggravating factors, okay, to ask the judge for more than the 5 years, which you can rest assured that the state's going to ask for the 25 years. And, you know, here's where it really becomes hard for the defense, is because all of the women, not only the 6 women who testified in this case, whether they had a claim or not, there's other women, okay, that are going to want to come in and testify. So that overwhelming aggravating factor, that it's an ongoing behavior, is really going to be difficult, and it's going to force this judge's hand to give him a more significant sentence. And remind you, he was also found guilty on a separate count, even though it only carries 1.5 to 4 years. because it's separate instances, this judge can run it consecutive. So he can get as much as 29 years in this case.
All right, Joseph, good to talk to you. Thank you. That is lawyer and legal commentator Joseph Marrone in Philadelphia.